All right, so today we're going to talk about FEMA's assistance program, primarily how to appeal, specifically for our um, households in North Carolina from Hurricane Helene. But before I get into all of that, I just want to explain who SBP is because we're not very familiar in North Carolina. SBP is a nonprofit disaster recovery organization that started in Louisiana after Hurricane Katrina, excuse me, in the St. Bernard Parish. We have parishes in Louisiana as opposed to counties. St. Bernard Parish was a highly marginalized community that was being overlooked and had a lot of damages due to Katrina. So we started as a rebuild program and we called ourselves the St. Bernard Project. Well, over the past almost 20 years now, we have expanded our programming and we have expanded our reach. So we had rebranded to SBP. But our mission remains the same, and that mission is to shrink the time between disaster and recovery. We want to speed up that recovery process after a disaster. We have a lot of different programs within our organization, but the one that we'll be speaking to today and is the whole point of this training is our disaster assistance program, which helps disaster affected households, primarily homeowners, is what our team works with, in the appeals process. So I'm going to give some background here. In 2021, there was a Washington Post article that was written by an investigative journalist named Hannah Dreyer, who had identified that between the years 2017 and 2021, 66 to 87% of all FEMA applicants were denied assistance. It's a jarring percentage. Now, there are various reasons for those denials, and we'll go through some of that in our training today. But the one thing I really want to highlight here is that even today, only 4 to 6% of FEMA applicants ever appeal their decision, whether they are denied or whether they are provided a lower award amount than is necessary for them to recover. And this is the part that's really sad. And this is the part that we, with our disaster assistance program, want to change. What you guys may or may not know is that FEMA has a set time period, 18 months, which we're going to go over in the next slide. But after those 18 months, Housing and Urban Development can come and provide something called Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funds. And this will help with more long-term recovery, go towards infrastructure and individual homes there. These HUD monies are allocated based off of how many people apply to FEMA and how many people appeal FEMA. So the fewer appeals that are being generated, that could equate to the fewer HUD monies that come in through that Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funding. So not only is it really essential to help households appeal their FEMA decisions, it is helpful for the entire community and their recovery to reduce that amount of time to recover. Our disaster assistance program has been around since the tail end of 2020. We submitted our very first appeal in December of 2020. Since then, we have helped over 1,400 households in filing appeals. We have, of the appeals that we've submitted and we've received determinations on, we've helped these households access more than $6.4 million. We're actually just shy of like 500 or $5,000 shy of $6.4 million. In North Carolina alone, we have helped 39 households access more than $222,000. That's about $9,000 in addition to the funding that they've already received from FEMA. We see an average of a 92.3% increase in awards over their original decision. And in our program, we are fully grant funded. So all of the funds that FEMA provides goes directly to that household. Additionally, like I'm doing right now, our program also provides free training on all things FEMA related and FEMA appeals related. So let's get into the nitty gritty. FEMA. So this is FEMA's generalized timeline. Day 0 is the day that the declaration is made. Not the day of the disaster, but the day the declaration was made. And at this point, people can begin applying for FEMA. After they apply to FEMA, which is a 60 to apply. Turk, do you have a question? Sorry. Oh, perfect. Okay, awesome. All right. After the 60-day window, which is the window to apply, within that time frame, you apply to FEMA, and FEMA allows themselves up to 90 days to respond. So if I apply at day 15, up to 90 days from that day 15, FEMA has to respond to my application, has that time to respond to my application. From this point, a determination letter will be provided. And these determination letters will identify whether you are approved or denied assistance. The determination letter states on page 3, mind you, that you can appeal any decision that you don't agree with, and it gives instructions on how to appeal. FEMA requests that all appeals be submitted within 60 days of the date of that determination. However, I really want to state this clearly. You can and should still appeal if there is a need for additional assistance, even if you're past that 60-day window. Okay? You can and should. The only thing you need to do is make sure that you identify why there was a delay in appealing. The majority of the appeals that we submit on behalf of households are after that 60-day window. Okay? Anyway, FEMA wants you to do it within 60 days because the process is a long one, right? Because after you submit an appeal, FEMA will then again allow themselves up to 90 days to respond. And because there's only an 18-month assistance window, the sooner you get that appeal in, the greater chance you have to appeal again if the decision that they provided was not one that you're still in agreement with. Do we have any questions on this timeline? Yes.
Sorry, I put it in the chat. I missed the first few minutes. Are we going to be able to get like a transcript of this or like a recording of this? Or can we just like email you if we have any issues or?
Yeah, we're getting a recording. You'll get the recording. And you really just missed information about our disaster assistance program. But yeah, and yes, at the end of this training, I'm going to talk about how you guys can refer disaster survivors over to us so that you can have this little piece taken off your plate. Because you guys have a whole bunch of other things going on that you're trying to help households with in their recovery. So great question. All right. Okay. This is the breakdown of assistance that FEMA can provide. All right. Now, you have assistance for the structure of the home. This comes in the form of the home repair or home replacement. To be eligible for home repair or home replacement assistance, assistance, you have to be the homeowner of the home. It has to be your primary residence, and you have to have lived there for the majority of the time, majority of the year. Okay. You you could receive up to $42,500 for your structural needs, depending upon how much damage there was to the home. So, home repair or home replacement has a maximum award of $42,500. This is for homeowners only. I also want to note that this $42,500 is for Hurricane Helene. Every October 1st, FEMA starts their fiscal year. It goes with the government, right? The fiscal year starts on October 1st. So every October 1st, the maximum award amounts change according to the Consumer Price Index. Hurricane Helene happened in September. We know that Hurricane Milton hit Florida in October. So while in Florida, Hurricane Helene affected households have this maximum award of $42,500. Hurricane Milton households that were affected have a maximum award amount of $43,600. This is according to the Consumer Price Index. And again, that whole fiscal year goes from October 1st to September 30th. So if, heaven forbid, anything were to happen again in North Carolina this year, and there was a declaration made before October 1st, that maximum award amount would change to $43,600. If there was something that happened in October 1st or onward next year, it would be according to what FEMA sets as the Consumer Price Index. So, homeowners only whose primary residence was affected by the disaster can receive up to $42,500 for repair or replacement of their home. For other needs assistance, includes personal property, transportation, moving and storage, medical and dental, child care, debris removal, group flood insurance, whole bunch of items in this other needs assistance. Homeowners or renters whose primary residence was affected by the disaster could receive up to $42,500. Again, this encompasses a whole bunch of things, right? Not just personal property, which is generally the primary need of assistance under other needs assistance. So I've never seen anyone receive $42,500 for the contents within the home because there are a whole bunch of things under other needs assistance. But homeowners or renters could be eligible for up to $42,500 for other needs assistance. Rental assistance, again, if you are a homeowner or a renter whose primary residence was affected by the disaster, you could receive an unlimited cap of funds from FEMA. And we're going to go into this in more detail in this training, so I won't get into too much of the nitty-gritty right now. But every 2 months, as you show need, FEMA can provide additional rental assistance funding until you are able to move back into a permanent housing situation, until FEMA's assistance window ends, or until FEMA no longer deems you eligible for rental assistance. Lastly, we have something called access and functional needs assistance. Again, if you are a homeowner or a renter whose primary residence was damaged in the disaster, you could potentially be eligible for access and functional needs assistance. Access and functional needs assistance is for individuals who have additional needs to live their day-to-day, whether it is mobility issues, visual or hearing impairment, and the list goes on. Or if you had this before the disaster, or if you had access and functional needs caused by the disaster. And you had items that were affixed to the home, say a ramp or uh, grab bars, or items that you use day to day as contents, such as a CPAP machine or glasses that were all damaged inside the disaster. And you do not have insurance that covers the replacement of that. With access and functional needs, there again is an unlimited cap of funding. FEMA wants to make sure that you don't have to tap into the other types of assistance to make your home where it needs to be after the disaster to be safe, sanitary, and functional. Any questions on this? All right. Now, I mentioned a few times that it has to be the primary residence. As you can see down here at the bottom, it says secondary homes do not qualify for FEMA financial assistance. That said, if you are a landlord who owns multiple homes, you could potentially get an SBA loan to help with repairs there. Okay, so recapping, if you were a homeowner, you could receive up to $42,500 for the structure of your home, up to $42,500 for other needs assistance, for a total of $85,000. And this does not include rental assistance or access and functional needs. Yes, Tarika. Oh, you're muted.
What if you have a homeowner that bought like a chainsaw and that's been clearing land, but the home wasn't damaged? Can FEMA still help them with some kind of compensation? Like I have a couple of cases where like they've just been clearing land for like 9 months to try and get it back to normal.
Yeah. Do you know if some of the land that needs to be cleared was impeding access to the home at all? Say the driveway, the private road that they may have owned, or the front door,
I,
back door?
I can find out. I know one is the dirt road that goes up to their house has been severely eroded, and they're looking for help to like bring gravel and fill in. And I'm still trying to figure out like how to help them.
Yeah. So, private access roads, like the one that you're stating with this dirt road that had gravel on it that's been completely eroded, would be part of housing assistance. So what FEMA will want to do is they will want to provide as much funding first for the structure of the home if there was damage to that before they would provide assistance for the private access road. Same goes with the private bridge that could connect your home to the main road. Um, FEMA potentially, maybe, could potentially, again, maybe provide assistance for reimbursement for a chainsaw if the debris was impeding access to the home. And again, this is a heavy potential. Um, I always I always say try. The worst that can happen is they could say no and not provide that assistance, but you won't know if you don't try. Great question. If you are a renter, the maximum award amount you could receive is this $42,500, again, not including rental assistance or access and functional needs. Okay, let's talk FEMA determination letters. I'm not sure how many of you guys have assisted disaster affected households in the past or have been dealing with appeals on your own, if you have seen um, an appeal letter or not, but this is what one looks like. And I uh, just see we have in a chat that Mary has a question. So, Mary, go right ahead. Again, guys, feel free to unmute yourselves at any point and begin asking that question. Mary, please go ahead.
Teams where there's a little thing you can indicate that you have a question. So um, when we go back to the home assistance,
Mhm.
and of course, one of the biggest things I've dealt with is that people didn't know that if their home, if access to their home was damaged, but their home itself wasn't damaged, they check the box, no, my home wasn't damaged, because that's the way it's written. It says, was your home damaged? And then, of course, they get denied for any help to repair their road or bridge. Do we have to help them go? Do they have to go back to their original application and get FEMA to change that answer in order for any appeals related to that to get accepted?
That is such a great question. I really appreciate you bringing that up. There are times when you apply to FEMA that you may not know how bad the damage is to your home. And you may state, I didn't have a lot of damages. Um, I uh, my home is safe to live in, or FEMA can call.
Silent. Can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? Oh, shoot. Um,
I can still hear you.
you can
Yeah,
hear me?
I can hear you.
I can
It must be an
fine.
audio issue on their end.
Okay. Um, so FEMA can call the applicant and then
I can't
say,
hear you.
Turco, can you hear me now?
Can anyone else hear her?
Yeah, we can hear her.
Um, so FEMA could call and say, uh, are you living in your home? And half the roof may be gone. Mold may be climbing up their walls due to flood damage. And that household may not have any other location to live. So they say, yes, I'm living in this home, and FEMA automatically assumes that the home is safe to live in. And what do we do then, right? Because then they receive a determination letter that says, well, your home is safe to live in. We're not providing you with any assistance. No, you do not need to call FEMA to readjust that. What you need to do is appeal with a contractor estimate identifying the extent of damage to the home. And we'll go into that in a little more detail as well. But this is why appealing is so important. It's because if you don't appeal, you're leaving so much money on the table. And appealing is not just a letter stating, hey, I don't agree with this, or hey, I still have additional needs. It is appealing with substantiating documentation, including contractor estimates or repair receipts, or things to identify that the damages that are to the home were directly related to Hurricane Helene, and it's making the home unsafe, unsanitary, and non-functional. Right, we have a few more questions in here. All right. Okay, so determination letters look like this. And what you can see, aside from the redacted points, is either assistance not approved, You are not eligible for the following assistance. Ineligible, home is safe to occupy. I don't know if you're like me, but if I wasn't as well versed in all things FEMA as I am and I received this, I'd be like, what the heck? What do you mean I'm not eligible? What do you mean my assistance is not approved? What do you mean my home is safe to occupy? And then I'd probably crumple this up and I'd throw it in the trash and say, well, so much for all that effort of applying to FEMA. And I probably would not read to page 3 that says, if you do not agree with this, you can appeal. So, really important to advocate for others to understand that they have every right to appeal any decision that they do not understand or they do not agree with. So, so important. This is a conversation starter, you guys. This is a way for FEMA to gather a bit more information so that they can provide you with all the necessary funding that it will take for you to get your home back to a safe, sanitary, and functional condition. Okay. How many of you guys have seen something like this? Where it says, hey, you've been approved for funding, but you have a flood insurance requirement. Has anybody seen this before?
I have.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to read some stuff out to you guys that are highlighted here just to make it easier because it might be a little small on your end. It says you've been approved. Your home is located in a special flood hazard area and was damaged by flooding. If you keep the money that FEMA gives you, you will be required to buy and keep flood insurance with building coverage. You will need to keep it as long as you live in your home or if a future flood risk map shows your home is no longer in a special flood hazard area. If you sell your home, the new owner will be required to buy and keep the flood insurance. So let me rephrase this. Once FEMA has identified that your home is in a flood zone, and the FEMA flood zone map is continually changing, especially with ever increasing disasters, what may not have previously been a flood zone area could now be a flood zone area. And if FEMA is providing funding and they identify that you are now within this flood zone area, they will provide you with funding and then say, hey, now that we're giving you this funding, FYI, you're in this flood zone area. It's your responsibility to obtain and maintain flood insurance for as long as you have the property. And if you sell the property, you need to disclose to the future buyers that they have a flood insurance requirement on the property because it stays with the property. It does not stay with you. Okay, it stays with the property. The only time that'll change is if the flood zone maps change again, and then you're no longer located in a flood zone area. All of that 100% clear, fully understandable. The part that I bracketed in blue is what gets a lot of people confused and concerned and sometimes frustrated. The part that I highlighted says if you do not buy flood insurance or if you let it lapse, you may not be approved for some forms of FEMA assistance in future disasters. This is true. If in the next flood-related disaster, if you have not purchased or maintained flood insurance after FEMA identified that you have a flood insurance requirement, you may not receive assistance for that flood-related damage. Let's say it was a wind-only event. It does not matter if you have flood insurance or not because it's not flood-related. It would be for the next flood-related disaster. If you did not have flood insurance, FEMA would not provide assistance because they are requiring this. That's 100% clear. The part that gets the confusion happening is if you do not agree to buy and keep flood insurance, you have 30 days from the date of this letter to return all FEMA home repair assistance that flood insurance would have covered. All right. That's the part that's confusing. Now, I want to say you do not have to return the FEMA funds, even if you do not buy flood insurance in the future. You do not have to return these funds. FEMA will not penalize you for keeping the funds and using those funds to repair your home as long as you're using it appropriately and applying those funds to the structure of the home, to the contents, et cetera, et cetera. Just note, in future flood-related disasters, FEMA will not provide additional assistance. If you want to sell your home and you do not want to have that disclosure of, I have a flood insurance requirement, you could return all funds to FEMA and they could wipe away that requirement of the flood insurance. I have seen this in the past in Kentucky with some flooding events where disaster survivors in the 2021 floods had returned all of their funding back to FEMA. And then in the 2022 floods, they were expecting to get FEMA assistance. There was some miscommunication within FEMA's system, and they were deemed ineligible for assistance in 2022, stating that they did not have flood insurance when they were requested to receive the flood insurance, even though they returned all their funding. So I'm not coming on here to say what you should or should not do, but what I will say is if it was me and I received funding, I would apply it to my home, to the repairs, and just know if I do not obtain or maintain flood insurance in the next flood-related disaster, I would not receive FEMA assistance. With this also, FEMA could potentially provide, if you are eligible, something called group flood insurance that comes under the other needs assistance. This is 3 years worth of flood insurance that would be covered from FEMA. This would come in a separate letter after you receive this determination. So 3 years worth of flood insurance that could come. And at that point, it would be your responsibility after the 3 years to continue maintaining the flood insurance. Right. All right. We do have a question in the chat. Does FEMA provide an authorization for release of information form for clients who want disaster case managers to contact FEMA on their behalf regarding application status, appeals, or other matters, or should our agency provide that release form? Yes, FEMA does provide a release of information form. You can be found on, you can just Google it. Otherwise, we can send one to Sarah to distribute out to everyone who is registered. It's a blank copy straight from FEMA. Great question. Right. These are some common reasons for ineligibility. Oh, excuse me. Occupancy not verified or ownership not verified. You're insured or you're ineligible due to insurance coverage. Failed identity verification. Or no substantiation submitted. Insufficient damage or reported no damage. So these are the most common things that we see as a reason for ineligibility of FEMA's assistance. This does not mean, again, that you are not eligible for FEMA's assistance. It just means you need to provide more documentation to prove that you are eligible. So in order to prove occupancy or ownership, it's supplying documentation to prove ownership, such as the deed to the home, a last will and testament of the deceased owner who's identified you as the heir to the property. Um, for owners or for occupancy, it could be rental receipts or any official utility letter that has your name and the address to that location. If it was that you were insured, it's providing an insurance declaration page, a settlement statement, or a denial letter explaining how much funding FEMA has, or excuse me, insurance has or has not provided. FEMA wants to avoid duplication of benefits. If it's failed identity verification, you would submit your Social Security statement, an ID of some sort. If there's no substantiation submitted or insufficient damages or no damages reported, contractor estimates are key. If it was a vehicle that was destroyed, providing mechanic statements. If you've already done some repairs, it's showing the repair receipts. If they were contents within the home for a renter, it's including a landlord that states, hey, my tenant, name of this survivor, lived in the home at the time of Hurricane Helene, and that house has been completely destroyed along with all the contents, right? So you want to have some substantiating evidence by external parties to prove that there is damage to the home or to the contents or to the vehicle, etc. All right. This is how you would structure an appeal letter. You put identifiable information on every single page. FEMA's system, they'll be the first to tell you, is archaic. They just don't receive funding to improve their technology, unfortunately. So having identifiable information on every page makes sure that they're able to keep everything together. Then you have the body of the letter. Don't copy and paste this, guys. This is not a one size fits all thing, but it just shows that it's short and sweet. We're eliminating all that fluff. I've worked with disaster survivors who would write multiple pages worth of appeals talking about how they lived in the home for 24 years, they've raised their children there, et cetera, et cetera. And you can imagine FEMA agents who are reviewing hundreds, if not thousands, of appeals per week, trying to just get to the meat of what the need is and having to sift through all the additional stuff, right? We want to keep it short and sweet. Identify what it is you're appealing, why you're appealing it, what substantiating evidence you have to back up your claims. And the one thing you do want to make sure that you have on every single letter is the legally binding statement that says, I hereby declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct. If you do not have this legally binding statement on this letter, you have to get the letter notarized. And writing this down is much cheaper than hiring a notary. FEMA will not review an appeal that does not have that legally binding statement or is not notarized. Survivor will sign it. We again put additional information from what was different from up top. Up here we have FEMA registration number, Social Security, last four is Social Security, the name of the disaster code. Down here we have address, date of birth, city, and state. And then we list out the attachments that we are going to include in the appeal. We submit everything, including the attachments, as one document. We do not submit it as multiple individual documents. The reason being, FEMA is not like us who has one survivor that we're assisting per person, right? us as the case manager or the advocate is seeing one household through from beginning to end. That is not how FEMA does it. Every document that's submitted goes to a different FEMA agent for review. So if you submit things separately, it goes to different FEMA agents, and it's going to take that much longer for an appeal to be reviewed. So compile everything and submit it as one document. All right. Any questions on any of this? Because we're going to move now to rental assistance. Okay. Rental assistance is available to any household, renter or homeowner. Oh, see something in the chat. Let's make sure. Okay. In cases involving mixed status families where the parents are co-applicants, what types of documentation can be used to verify the residency? Since children typically do not have utility bills, official documents in their names, and the deed or lease is under the parents' names, how can residency be established for the household as a whole? Rosario, do you mind unmuting yourself and giving a little more context here? Are the children now deemed the owners of the home, or are they renters within the home?
No, it's when the parents are the owners.
Mhm.
But yes, I know that they can apply to FEMA through their children because their children are citizens.
Okay, yes.
But many times they are denied for that reason. And some FEMA representatives are very good to help the parents go through all this process, but others are not trained. And I want to be able to help the one that been denied. And I have some of these cases. That's
Yeah.
why I am asking this question. And if cannot be respond right now, I know it's okay if you send me a response later on. It's fine. I just want to be able to help my people.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to respond right now, especially since you probably will not be the only person to experience this. So, great question. Thank you for this. FEMA can assist households even if they are not documented or undocumented households, as long as there was a child who was born in the United States that is under the age of 18 that is currently living within the household. So if you have parents who own the home that are not documented but have, say, a 2-year-old child that was born in the United States, they could apply to FEMA by identifying the child as the primary applicant, because FEMA will want to see their social security number, and then one of the adults as the co-applicant. So as you can see in the chat, Rosario identified that the parents are co-applicants. FEMA should be able to identify that the parent who's listed as the co-applicant is the owner of the home, because it does not matter if the primary applicant or the co-applicant is listed and shows, let's say you have a deed to the house, and the deed to the house is in the co-applicant's name as opposed to the primary applicant's name. FEMA will match that up and say, oh, the co-applicant is the same name as the person on the deed, so we can move forward. But Rosario will be happy to work with you on some of those cases because they are trickier, and the language that is used in the appeal letter will be a little bit complex. But I just want everyone to know that FEMA can financially assist with households where the children were born in the United States, have a social security number, and are listed as the primary applicant, and the adult household member is listed as the co-applicant? Great question. Okay, any other questions before we move to rental assistance? Beautiful. Okay, so again, if you're a renter or a homeowner and you are displaced, your home is not able to be lived in, you could receive rental assistance. What FEMA will want to understand is your home is not safe. That's the primary thing. They'll want to understand that your home is not safe to live in. And if you can identify that your home is not safe to live in and you need somewhere else to live, FEMA should be able to provide that rental assistance. The language in which FEMA asks and identifies this is confusing. They'll say things like, are you willing to relocate? Now, if I hear that, are you willing to relocate? I'd be like, well, no, this is my home. Like, I don't want to leave my home. I've lived here for years and years. I don't want to. That's not what they mean. They mean, are you willing to temporarily relocate? They could change it up a little bit. So explaining this to our survivors is really necessary since FEMA does not do the best job explaining. So if FEMA asks, are you willing to relocate? This is a temporary relocation to see if the survivor could be eligible for rental assistance. Okay. There are various forms of displacement assistance, rental assistance for individuals who had been displaced and were in a hotel. Some people could receive reimbursements from that if they did not receive something called displacement funding. You would need receipts from those hotel stays, which you would then send to FEMA with an appeal letter stating I was displaced from my home from this date to this date. I had to stay in a hotel. These are all the receipts from that hotel. Could I be reimbursed? For rental assistance is a 2-month lump sum of money that can be applied towards temporary rent. This can be at an Airbnb, a apartment. You could even use this if you were moving in with family temporarily and helping pay the bills, right? As long as you received some receipts from that family member. At the end of the 2 months, if you're not yet back into your home, you could receive an additional 2 months worth of rental assistance. But in order to secure that additional 2 months worth of rental assistance, you will need to fill something out called a continued temporary housing assistance form. And it looks a little something like this. Oops. This is what it looks like. So this continued temporary housing assistance form, as you'll see right here, is sent to a survivor 1 month after they receive the initial rental assistance, either to their online portal or via post mail. Now, this brings up a very important point. A lot of households are transient after a disaster as they're going from place to place. It is so important to make sure that we explain to all of our clients that every time they have a different mailing address, they should update FEMA. And they can do this by calling FEMA's helpline and saying that they have changed their current mailing address and would like to update that within FEMA's system. Because FEMA does send documentation via postal mail. And if that postal mail goes to an address that the survivor no longer accesses, then that's important information or forms or even checks that are not going to the right place. So we want to make sure that if someone moves and they have a different postal address, they update FEMA with their updated postal address. Same thing goes if they change their email or if they change their phone number. We want to make sure that we update FEMA constantly. Okay, so we're going to go over this form in just a second. I'm going to re-show it, but after you fill out this form, you want to include a few documents, and that includes any rental receipts or lease agreements, temporary lease agreements, that you've secured after the disaster. You want post-disaster utility bills. You want post-disaster pay stubs. FEMA wants to see how much money you make to see how much assistance they will provide. If that household's still paying a mortgage, you want to include mortgage payments post-disaster. Okay? So right here, this is the form. These are actually pages 3 and 4 of the form. Pages 1 and 2 are a template. Shows you how to fill it all in. It really is fairly self-explanatory, but having an advocate sit down and guide the household members through it is very helpful. When FEMA sends this form, the first 6 fields are already generally filled in with all the information that FEMA already has on file. If the information that FEMA has on file has changed, you would fill that in this box. That includes applicant name, disaster number, current mailing address, FEMA application number, current phone number, and alternate phone. Okay. Down here is where you identify how much money you're spending per month on rent. And if, again, you have a mortgage, on your mortgage, and then how you pay that, whether that's monthly, annually, or any other billing form. This includes mortgage, real estate taxes, homeowners insurance, rent for the temporary housing unit, water and sewer, electric, gas, trash, or other. On page 4, you will identify your current landlord's name and phone number. This is very important. FEMA can and will call the landlord to verify that you are living there, that you are making payments there, etc., etc. You then want to identify the list of individuals in this temporary housing unit that are over the age of 18 and what their gross income is before taxes, and identify how you are paid. Again, for all of the bills that you have and your pay stubs, you will want to show that information in the form of the pay stubs, in the form of the bills, as a copies, and send it to FEMA along with this form. Lastly, you will identify your permanent housing plan. You will either identify whether you were a renter before the disaster or a homeowner before the disaster and what your housing plan is. If you were a renter, are you returning to your pre-disaster rental unit? Are you moving into a new rental unit within your budget? Or do you plan on moving in with family and friends? And if you do plan on moving in with family and friends, what is your projected move-in date? If you own the home, what is your permanent housing plan? Is it to repair or rebuild the disaster damaged home? Is it to build a new home? Is it to purchase a different home? Is it to become a renter and find a rental property within your budget? Or are you planning on moving in with family and friends? And if you are planning on moving in with family and friends, what is your projected move-in date? Lastly, you will sign the document and date it. As you note right here, it says applicant or co-applicant signature. So going back to that household that may have some undocumented individuals in it, if the applicant is the child, obviously the child would not be signing that. It would be the co-applicant that signs. Any questions on this continued temporary housing assistance form? If someone has not received this, you can actually Google it. You can type in continued temporary housing assistance form, FEMA, and it will come up with this blank form version.
This is Mary. I have a question.
Hi, Mary.
If If they have been renting for a while and have not filled out this form yet, relative to Helene, is it too late?
No,
Okay.
definitely is not. So you can identify that they've been displaced from their home. They're still trying to get back into their permanent housing situation. They have been renting over the last almost year now. And you can provide all the information, all those rental receipts that they've had in the past to see if FEMA could potentially do back pay for reimbursement. Otherwise, if nothing else, FEMA could at least provide 2 more months of additional assistance.
And then a follow-up question would be, if they thought they would find a place in 3 months or 6 months and they put that as their anticipated move-in date, but they weren't able to find what they needed, how do they tell FEMA I need to change my plan?
Yeah, so every 2 months, FEMA will send this new form. And so if you thought you were going to move into your permanent solution in a 3 months time, and now you know it's going to be another 6 months, in the new form that you fill out, you write that projected move-in date, you update it. If anything, you could write an actual appeal letter like this in conjunction with the form to say, this is the situation I had been expecting. Now my new projected move-in date is whatever. Until that time, I need additional housing assistance from FEMA, excuse me, rental assistance from FEMA, um, and my continued temporary housing assistance form and all supporting documentation is attached. Did that answer your questions?
Sorry, yes, I had already unmuted myself or muted myself. I mean,
No problem. Anyone else have questions regarding rental assistance? Rosario says she has a case that was denied rental assistance because the primary applicant is not listed on the lease due to credit issues. Is there a way to appeal this decision? Do we know if the co-applicant is listed on the lease? And if there is no co-applicant on the FEMA application, could the person who is listed on the lease be identified as a co-applicant by calling FEMA and saying, hey, I want to add this person as a co-applicant?
Yes, he's a co-applicant, but they said when she called, they said that no, that he needed to be on the list. If not, they couldn't give the rental assistance.
Hmm.
And the co-op the is yeah.
Yeah, so
And they are very close to be evicted because
mm,
there is so many issues around that, and we did all the paperwork and everything, but still it's been hard. We find some non-profit organization that help it with already 2 or 3 months of rent, but it's so many issues with that family, but they really try to do everything on their hand.
mhm. Um,
And they cannot find a more affordable housing right now. And they lost their job and find another job, but are making a lot less income than what they used to.
mhm. So one of the things that we have learned over the years is that if at first you don't succeed, try again with FEMA. Um, submitting appeals and submitting the continued temporary housing assistance forms, submitting any documentation is like playing Russian roulette. You're lucky if you find a good FEMA agent that will process things the way you want them to, that was well trained, that is taking the time to read all the documentation, et cetera, et cetera. If they deny you, appeal again, and it may go to somebody else who's better. Appeal as many times as necessary until you get the answer and the decision that you want. That is one of the
Okay.
heavy takeaways I want to give to all of you. Rosario, in this situation, maybe this is another one that we can talk about a little more in detail to see exactly what was going on here outside of this
Mhm.
call, because it should be that if the co-applicant is listed, if the person on the lease is identified as the co-applicant in FEMA's system, there should not be an issue. And I don't know why FEMA is causing that issue. So this could be one that we could talk about offline.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I want to mention another issue that is happening a lot with FEMA.
Uh-huh.
It's like that we turn in all the information that they are requesting, and they request the same information again.
Mhm.
And more of the time, what I advise the applicants is to call the helpline and point out where and when they upload the information. But I just want to put that out there because I don't know if somebody else had that.
That is such a great point. I cannot tell you guys how many times we have called FEMA to get a status update on an appeal that we have submitted, and FEMA says, oh, we need this additional documentation, which we submitted in the appeal, and we have to point out to them, no, it's right here on page 5. And they'll go to page 5 and they'll say, oh, yeah, it is right here. So then they have to make a note and then make sure that the person who is reviewing it re-reviews it. So that's such a good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Rosario. Um, Again, the moral of this story is to not take no as an answer and continue to advocate and be persistent if there is a need.
I'd like to add one more thing to that, which
Yeah.
is I noticed on your sample letter that you had the ROI attached, the release of information form attached.
Mhm.
And one thing I've run into multiple times with FEMA is they can't find it if it isn't sent in as its own document. So if you're attaching a second copy just to make this appeal go through, that's great. But if that's the only copy they have, I've been advised to always send it under, whether you're faxing it or uploading it as its own document, ROI, so that they can find it.
Yeah, also another really great point. We submit the ROI twice. We submit it individually when we first begin working with this disaster affected household. We submit it right away. And then when we're submitting the appeal, we also include it again. So really great point, Mary. Thanks for bringing that up. So important to submit individually. And again, we submit it with the appeal because sometimes whoever's reviewing the appeal or whoever is answering the call that we're calling to say, hey, we need information on John Smith's appeal. They may say, oh, I don't see an ROI on file. We'll say it's also included with the appeal at the very end. So it's very helpful to have it in multiple places within FEMA's system. Great point. Any other questions regarding all things FEMA appeals related before we go into our referral process? Okay. So Our team is able to assist homeowners with home repair or replacement appeals, personal property appeals, or moving and storage appeals. So if you have anyone that you are working with who falls into this category and you're like, oh my gosh, could use additional assistance, I'm dealing with so much stuff, please send them our way. We are more than happy to assist in this, and we have great capacity right now to be able to assist with appeals. It's very easy to send referrals our way. There's this interest form. You guys will have these slides. I'll make sure that Sarah gets these slides so that you can have easy access and you can click that interest form. It looks like this right here. Again, really short and sweet. This, you will input the homeowner's information, their first, last name, their mobile or their phone number. If they have a mobile phone, that'd be great. Their email address. If they do not have an email address, your email address is just fine. Their damaged dwelling address. Over here, under the how did you hear about us, you would select referral partner, then you would put your organization name right here. This allows us to report back to you because then we'll know, oh, yep, whatever group you're working with, we can connect with your group and say, hey, these are the people that you've referred to us. This is the process. This is where your clients are and in the appeals process. But additionally, we would love to make sure that you put your name and contact information in the comments, because if we have difficulties reaching this household, or if this household has technological challenges that could use some in-person assistance with, we'd love to be able to contact you and say, hey, can you help this person gather these necessary documents? Or could you help scan these documents over to us so that we can include them in the appeal? Additionally, in this comments box, you can identify anything that could be helpful for us to know about the client's case. Lastly, we have a way for you to upload files. So if you already have an ROI on file and you want to add SBP in section C.5 of that ROI, you can provide it to us. If you have determination letters that you've already gathered from that client, you can upload those. These are common things that we need in order to be able to move forward with the appeal. If you have zip files with multiple documents, fantastic. Just go ahead and upload that, because each file on here has to be uploaded one by one. And so zip files will be a lot easier. That's as simple as that for the online form. Now, this is an advocate-facing form only. We would not want disaster survivors to use this form. If we want to direct people to SBP to reach out to us, they can go onto our website, and there's a form there that they can fill out. Have a few questions in the chat that I'll get to before I go into the next way of referring survivors. Is there a designated point of contact at FEMA that our agency can work with to ensure effective communication and coordination regarding our clients, since we are collaborating on disaster case management? There are FEMA voluntary agency liaisons that are designated for different disasters. In North Carolina, I do not know who the current FEMA VALs are right now. I can try to find out. I knew who they were before, but right now they change every so often. I do not know who those are. There is no one within FEMA headquarters that is allowed to communicate with advocacy partners. Awesome. All right. You could also refer survivors to us via email with all the same information that was identified in that form. Send the email to FEMAHelp@sbpusa.org. Some of the documentation that we require from our disaster survivors that we work with, our clients that we work with, are the FEMA release of information form that we need them to fill out, their determination letters, and some substantiating documentation. So if you've already gathered these documents, it makes the process a lot quicker for us to be able to move the client forward in the appeals process. And so it's super helpful if you already have it to include it in your referral. And these other substantiating documents could include insurance declaration pages or award letters, such as the settlement statement or denial letter, receipts for any repairs that were already made, or photos for remaining damages. I will state one of the things that I love the most about our program and how it's funded is that we receive the grant funding to provide contractor estimates for home repair or home replacement appeals. And like I mentioned earlier, FEMA requires contractor estimates with home repair replacement appeals to show that there is substantiating evidence to identify there's additional need for assistance. So to alleviate the responsibility or the financial strain on that household in securing contractor estimates, the funding that we have in our program allows us to provide contractor estimates. This is why photos of remaining damages is very helpful for us. Do you have any questions about referrals?
You just mentioned the contractor estimates. A lot of times that's the sticky wicket for us because they're too busy. So should we put that in the comments? Like they have their primary need is a contractor estimate?
Yeah, you can put that in there. Otherwise, we are always going to provide the contractor estimates no matter what for the home repair or replacement appeals. Unless someone says, hey, I have contractor estimates I secured less than a month ago. So
Only
either
for
way.
the house, it can't be for the access road or bridge, right?
Yeah, so it's home or yes, access road or bridge. Yes, correct.
It can be for the access road or bridge.
Correct. Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes. Yeah. It depends upon if the private access road is accessed by multiple households, it does make it a bit trickier. We would definitely enlist your assistance a lot more in this because we would need the signatures and approvals of every single household that utilizes the access road. If the access road is only for or accessed through one household, it makes it a lot easier and we can move forward a little bit better. In the case that was brought up earlier with the gravel needing to be placed on the road because of it's hard to access the home, we have a case right now that we're working on with that exact same scenario. And we have the contractor estimates identifying that it's going to cost $9,000 to put gravel down and level off that dirt road. And we're submitting that appeal. We previously submitted an appeal just for the structure of the home, and now we're submitting the appeal for the access road piece. We do it separately because that's how FEMA wants it. Other questions? For Western North Carolina, do you work with contractors in Western North Carolina to get those estimates? That's a really great question, Duncan. So we do not. We have an in-house contractor, and the reason we have an in-house contractor is because FEMA also calls the contractors to verify the estimates. And we've noticed that there are a lot of times that FEMA could call contractors that households had utilized in the past, and they cannot get a hold of these contractors, or the contractors may identify, oh, damages. I don't know if the damages were related to the disaster or not. And if FEMA cannot get a hold of the contractor, or if the contractor does not accurately identify that the damages were related to the disaster, that can affect the approval rating on that appeal. So we have in-house contractors that we get the estimate from. And then Mary asked, what if the survivor doesn't have or cannot find their determination letters, who did not set up the disasterassistance.gov? Oh gosh, we have lots of households that we're assisting that are in that scenario. How our program is set up is we utilize AmeriCorps members to help us with the initial eligibility assessments and the intakes and gathering these necessary documents like the determination information and the ROI before it's handed off to our associates who are really the subject matter experts and they're the ones drafting the appeals. So that first team, if they are not able to secure the determination letters, we will make sure that we've faxed the ROI over to FEMA. And then once FEMA has that ROI, we will call FEMA to collect the determination information ourselves, understanding if that household was approved or denied, if they were denied, why they were denied. Those are the key things that we need to understand in order to accurately and effectively draft up our appeal and identify everything that is needed on FEMA's end to provide additional funding. All right. And then Taruko asked a great question. Do you have an email where we communicate with you or a Teams account? Yes, we do. You guys can send emails to our entire team at FEMAHelp@sbpusa.org right here. You can email me directly at this email address. I am also including the email of one of our senior managers that you can reach out to. Her name is Becky. And then we have a whole amazing team of great specialists who really help walk these households through the appeals process, draft the appeals. So we draft the appeals, we compile the appeals, we submit the appeals off to FEMA. We inform the clients that it's their responsibility to answer any FEMA phone calls because FEMA can and will call them. They will not call us. And to keep in communication with us so that we know if we need to send in FEMA any additional documents. If we don't hear from FEMA within 60 days of when we have submitted that appeal, we will call FEMA on the behalf of that household to find out what is going on with the appeal. We try to push appeals forward, et cetera, et cetera. So I have a fantastic team that I work with, and they're the reason we have really great approval ratings. Yes, Jen, we are recording this and Sarah will be sending it out to everybody. Kristen identified that local attorneys also accept referrals on cases for folks under 200% of the FPL. And then as far as template documentation, we don't really have too many templates other than ones that we use ourselves that has SBP information written all over it. Uh, but again, as identified here, here's our basic little templates that you guys will have access to. Oh, you have a gray block showing. Sorry, I have this here. This is the basic template that we have. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you guys all for your time. Oh, let's see a couple more things in the chat. Um, yeah, sorry. I've been trying to juggle a few different things at once. So, the chats and whatnot. So awesome. Um, Again, my information is in the chat. Becky's information is in the chat. Otherwise, you can email us at FEMAHelp@sbpusa.org. If you want to just direct homeowners to us, they can reach out to us at sbpusa.org/get help. They can call our 1-800 number or they can email us as well. Here's information for the FEMA helpline. Here's information on United policyholders. Here's some disaster legal aid information. And again, Kristen had identified that there are whole other groups of legal organizations that are able and willing to help as well. So we have over 300,000 FEMA applicants in North Carolina alone for Hurricane Helene. Again, only 6% on a national level appeal. So our goal is to get those appeal numbers up, and it takes an army of advocates to get that done. So thank you all for your time, and give you guys back 4 minutes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Claire. And again, everyone, my name is Sarah. You will be seeing an email from me with this recording, and I will also add it to United Way of North Carolina's website, which is unitedwaync.org. So be on the lookout for that. And thank you, everyone, so much. And again, thank you, Claire and SBP USA. Appreciate it. Bye, everyone.